Good morning and welcome to the American Public Works Association's Talking Top Tech webinar series. Today's panel discussion will be 1 hour in duration and is titled Talking Top Tech, Technology for Field Crews Edition. Due to the format of this program, it is not eligible for CEUs. My name is Rita Cassada, and I am your facilitator today. I am an education manager at APWA. I have a BS in Mechanical Engineering from Kansas State University and an MS in Engineering Management from the University of Kansas. I'm a licensed professional engineer, and before joining APWA, I served as the Public Works Director for the City of Lewisburg, Kansas. A recording of today's program will be available in the APWA Members Library and on YouTube within a week. APWA members can log into the library to access content free of charge. Not an APWA member? Take the members library for a test drive. Spend 2 weeks accessing all the materials in the members library for free. Look for the link to sign up in your email today after the program. Today's session is interactive, so if you have questions for our speakers, please type them into the chat pod. You may do this at any time throughout the program. When you are in full screen, you can access the chat pod by hovering the mouse at the top of the screen and clicking the chat icon. Now it's time to introduce today's panelists. Kent Hartsfield is the Business Development Manager for Cartograph from Dubuque, Iowa. Daniel Lovett is the Director of Public Works for the City of Lakeland, Tennessee. Adam McClure, GISP, is the GIS Coordinator for the town of Hillsborough in California. And Benjamin Schmidt is the President of Roadbotics from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And finally, Tony Shepard is the Public Works IT Manager for Ventura County Public Works in California. APWA is delighted to bring you such knowledge and experience, and we're going to start the program with each of the panelists giving a brief overview of how they're involved with technology for field crews. Kent, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Rita. As Rita mentioned, my name is Kent Hartsfield. I'm with Cartograph. In my role as a business development manager with Cartograph, I help public works departments employ and adopt operations management software. This can include, a large part of it is a mobile app that helps them add and edit assets in the field, as well as any work that they need to do on those given assets. In this role, a large part of that is the adoption process of these tools to make sure that they're being used in the right way. Thank you very much, Rita.
Thank you, Kent. Daniel, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. My name's Daniel Lovett. I've been in this field for 26 years, a public works director for 10. I'm in my second stint as public works director for another city. So being in the field prior to this, I learned a lot about how tech can help the guys in the field. I got first-hand experience with it, so that's actually helped. Previous city I worked for, I helped develop their work order system, their GIS program, and their online reporting. So I know how it starts and how it finishes. I'm a water and wastewater operator as well, although I don't use it where I'm employed right now. And I'm also having an executive leadership certificate from Harvard University. So I have a lot of knowledge and leadership from the ground up. So it helps me to see what happens to technology. That'd be it.
Thank you, Daniel. Adam, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, everybody, for attending. My name is Adam McClure. I'm a GIS professional from San Francisco, California. I've been studying geography for a little bit over 20 years, and I hold a bachelor's and master's degree in the subject. And for the past 3.5 years, I've been the GIS coordinator for the town of Hillsborough, which is about 15 miles south of San Francisco. And I administrate the GIS, asset management, GPS, and field mobile technology platforms that we use at Public Works, as well as within town. Just a little context, Hillsboro's a little bit over 6 square miles. The population's about 10,000. So what I'll be talking about today is how our public works field crews use mobile technologies and GIS and GPS solutions to help navigate our utilities, which include water, sewer, and stormwater, along with open space management in the field.
Thank you, Adam. Benjamin, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. So I'm here from robotics. Robotics helps empower communities to make really objective, data-driven decisions about their roads and infrastructure. So we do this by automating inspections and generating actionable data about a town's road networks, including individual distresses, so things like potholes and cracks and things like that. These detailed maps become the practical tools that administrators and field crews can use to save taxpayers dollars in terms of repairs and things like that. You know, the big question, how does this relate to field crews? The really great part is we do all this with a smartphone. So equipped with a simple smartphone app, field crews today can collect really an unprecedented level of detail about their infrastructure using the robotics technology. And all of this is automatically tagged and assessed using our advanced cloud-based technology. This leads to faster project completion, better preventative maintenance actions, you know, improving lifespan of that infrastructure. So I'm just excited to be here today with APWA and talking about kind of the exciting impacts of how AI and machine learning are really transforming the way that field crews can deploy technology and make better decisions about their roads and infrastructure. So thanks.
Thank you, Benjamin. And last, Tony, would you like to give your introduction? We may be having some technical issues with Tony. We'll give him just a second, and if we don't hear from him, we may just go ahead and start with the question. So I'll give him about 20 seconds to see if we can get his audio going. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start with the questions. And unless that's you, Tony. There he is. Okay. He met my 20-second deadline. Go ahead, Tony.
I apologize for that. Yeah, so good morning. My name is Tony Shepard, and as stated, I'm the IT manager for the Ventura County Public Works Agency in Southern California. We employ about 400 staff, and we support quite a large area with a broad range of services, from roads to water and sanitation services, vertical construction, watershed protection, and everything in between. Over the last 5 years, our strategy has been to emphasize the need for increased adoption of mobile devices and web-based applications, and we've really put a lot of effort into those systems. As an example, in 2015, only about 10% of our staff had a mobile device, which we would consider, you know, a laptop or a smartphone or anything like that. And for our entire agency, we only had 3 iPads. At the current time, and this was just before COVID, almost half of our staff had Surface Pro tablets, almost half of them had iPhones, and we have about 30 iPads deployed. So as you can see, there was a big focus on mobility, but not just the hardware, but then the software on the back end as well. We really embraced Office 365 with Skype, Teams, OneNote, and we're also really trying to push the limits on some of our GIS applications and integrating them with our asset management systems and our citizen-facing systems. So and now lately we've been focusing a lot more on ArcGIS online tools like Collector and Survey 123. So we've had contingency plans in place for man-made and natural disasters, but obviously this pandemic has really allowed us to exercise our efforts and our investment in the mobility technology, and it's really paid off. We've been able to do a lot more things remotely, and our field crews have been much more empowered in the field. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, we're going to start with the question and answer section of the presentation. So make sure, go ahead and send in your questions. We're going to start with a few that were submitted earlier. The first one is for Benjamin. With budgets always stretched thin and the pandemic causing even more issues with budgets, what should agencies be thinking about to help through these situations in terms of technology for field crews?
So I think that's a fantastic question, and I think certainly the pandemic has really slammed around a lot of public finance aspects and caused a lot of at least our particular clients, and I think a lot of the people that we know and interact with, to really question sort of what's the path out of these kinds of scenarios. You know, it almost seems kind of trite for a tech company to be offering technology, but I like to think of technology as sort of a broader catch-all in which it really just comes down to know-how. So I think for me, the biggest thing that we're seeing with a lot of our current clients is it's really around efficiency. So the number one thing here is that you're going to have to continue to offer the same services at either lower tax incomes or reduced services, which is really just, you know, not appetizing to really anyone. And so the answer to that is pure efficiency. And I think there's a lot that can be done to kind of marry up better technologies in field crews' hands that will lead to really better data, better decisions, and really, you know, cost savings on that back end. So I think, yeah, a lot of this has got to be sort of revisiting our processes, revisiting the way that things have been done, and even questioning sort of why were they done that way. I think in the new context of the environment in which we have with all these different sort of shifting priorities that are changing right now. You know, in our world with infrastructure, it's not something that you can neglect. You can neglect it for a little while, but you'll end up getting sort of slammed on that, you know, in a few years from now as sort of you've lacked the preventative maintenance and things like that. So it's got to be efficiency.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate that answer. The next question is Tony, I believe, is going to answer. What tools do you use to allow the public to interact with your agency so that they can ask questions or report a concern?
Yeah, thank you. So that's one of the things about public works that's often overlooked. We provide such a great service and we do so many things for our community. It's important to give people a venue to ask questions or to request a service, and oftentimes they don't know how to, so they'll kind of get lost in websites or 8 county directories. So what we did was we adopted a service called Acela CRM, formerly Public Stuff. And what that is, it's an externally facing tool that allows members of the public and our staff as well to report a concern throughout our county. For instance, if there's illegal dumping alongside of the road, they're able to report that concern and then dispatch that or send that in, and we can dispatch a crew to go take care of it. So far, we've had over 2,800 interactions with our residents, and that's significant because now we can actually provide a quantitative number to our decision makers to say these are the issues that we're having, these are the problem areas, and this is the level and quality of service that we provide to our taxpayers.
Thanks, Tony. Let's see, the next question is for Kent, and it's a question I had as well. Have you ever had a problem with employees that maybe they're not tech savvy and they don't want to embrace those new technologies? Can you speak to that, Kent?
Oh, most definitely, and thank you, Rita. This is actually a common question that we encounter with our customers. And typically it's not throughout the entire organization when they talk about this. It's not, you know, their entire staff or all of their crews that they're worried about adopting new technology. It's usually focused on a select few individuals. So when we come in as an organization and helping them kind of employ that solution and make sure that adoption is as high as they can get it, we really want to talk to them about buy-in not only from their administrative staff, but also from you know, field workers, people that are going to be out in the you know, in the field with the mobile apps doing their day-to-day jobs. So making sure we understand how they're actually doing those jobs, And then also, making sure that we're creating a solution that they bought into from the beginning. They're not being forced into something. They actually have a voice in the process. So as we deploy that solution, that adoption comes around, they feel like they're part of that solution. It's not something that's being forced upon them.
Thank you so much. That was a great answer. And I think Tony wanted to add his thoughts on that question as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So obviously, most of the field crews, they're traditionally thought of as low tech. I've actually found that the contrary to be true. They are embracing technology so much, assuming you provide proper training and a proper context of what it is that technology can do for them. They are, our staff at least, have been very quick to realize the benefits of technology. And we have a process, it's called Lean Six Sigma, it's process improvement, where we try to organically initiate process improvements. And a lot of those are actually coming from our field staff. Once we empower them with some technology, they're now actually being part of the solution. So it's this kind of revolution of mobile technology and all these new tools. It's actually starting to come from a ground roots source, and it's fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Daniel also wanted to add to that answer.
As being a public works director in the field, I've seen a huge turnover in the age of public works employees. There's a huge gap between the old and the young. There's not much in between. So the older ones we're training to do it, but the younger ones are coming pre-trained for tech. So, I mean, that's what they work with, what they grew up with. So in the next few years, it will be a whole lot easier to bring tech to the public works field just because of the age.
Thank you, Daniel. And Adam also wanted to add to that answer. That was a great question because everybody wanted to answer that one.
Thanks, Rita. Yeah, I think what Kent and Tony and Daniel said, while different points were really helpful to consider, what Kent talked about in terms of buy-in for the whole crew, from field workers to management to upper management, is really important. And I've seen in my experiences with colleagues, it's really important what Tony was talking about from the bottom up instead of the top down. I think sometimes we initially think of technology being pushed from the top down, which is important to have that support. But really, the field crews are the people that are using this technology, and they're going to learn things so much faster than myself or a lot of other people can use with the experience that they have in the field and with mobile technologies. And what Daniel's talking about is also very important, that, especially in the public sector, there's a lot of turnover in terms of retirement. And it's really important to consider that some people might be a little bit more skilled at some of these technologies than others, and to set up proper training programs, which is really important to be able to give your employees the tools that they can use to be successful in the field. Some people, this might be their first mobile tablet. Other people might have been using tablets for the past 10 years. And there's ways you can use that to your advantage so that you can share the knowledge as a resource between your employees.
Thank you. I think that was great on that. Let's see. Okay, we've got a new question in from Dan. To what degree should field inspection staff perform the data custodian role? For instance, should they have direct access to production data, example, feature service, to update both the attribute value and the geography, or should they access a copy of the production data that has it subject to additional QC prior to being moved to production data? So, Adam, that sounds like a really good question for you because it said geography.
Thanks, Rita, and thanks, Dan, for that question. Happy to chime in here. I'm going to talk from my perspective, and I'm a one-stop shop, which is pretty common around our nation and the world probably where we just have one GIS person in these small communities. So for me, I was the first GIS employee for the town. And when I came in, I had inherited people who were interns and consultants for the past 10 plus years. So as you can imagine, there's a little bit of a data mismanagement and cleanup required for that. So I locked everything down. And that means that any changes have to go through me. I utilize a production database for Lucity and GIS. Lucity is our asset management system, along with our GIS production and testing environment, but those were not there when I got there. So having both of those sandboxes to play in is really important, and making sure at least two eyes get through every change that you make in the production database. I've really been emphasizing to our sewer, water, and stormwater utilities, if we're going to make a change and push these data to the field crews, I want to make sure everything's right, and proper QA/QC is a big part of that.
And add something to that?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's a great question, because I think one of the exciting pieces here, and I know, well, actually, Kent, your company Cartograph, as well as my company Robotics, and several others are working on ways to really kind of either reduce or in some cases eliminate, but really reduce that data custodian role by having other systems that automatically can ingest that data, and then sort of the quintessential like production versus how much QCing, et cetera, is either taken care of for you, or it becomes sort of a matter of like, let's go back to the decision making, or let's go straight to decision making, as opposed to sort of like looking at the data itself as well, and sort of having the expertise across a broad spectrum. So I personally find that this will be something that is really going to evolve pretty quickly over the next few years, as that data custodian role sort of gets moved into a more defined and sort of data-driven process, and that ultimately field crews and administrators will be making decisions upon the data, rather than having to worry about sort of the data itself. So I think that's a really exciting development.
Actually, I couldn't have said it better myself, Benjamin. That's something that I was going to add, actually. So I just kind of adding on to what Adam was saying about kind of having that control from making sure that everything's clean. I think it really depends on the the feature class and the feature service that's available there. If you do have the clean attributes and things like that, that's great, but you're not going to have that for every feature class, and we know that. So in those feature classes, those assets that you might not have all the details on, why not put the ability to add attributes to those folks in the field? Now, how you QC that, that's an organizational decision. I would never get in between a GIS professional and their data, but it really comes down to what they're comfortable with, is what we've seen. So, but yes, you definitely want to have that, at least the ability to update attribute data, maybe update geolocation in the field for certain types of assets.
I'd also like to just kind of append to that evolutionary discussion of some of these GIS decisions that need to be made, especially as tools like ArcGIS Online, Collector, Survey 123 now put a lot more power into the hands of the end user. There is more training and awareness that needs to take place there, but there's also so much value by having field crews enter attribute data or new asset data out in the field, which is totally a 180 from how we've always done it at our agency, right? There has been always that GIS person who holds on to that data, like you said, and this is my data. But so much more power is going to be coming to the field, and it's kind of exciting to watch, but it's an opportunity for us as technology professionals to make sure that it's being done correctly.
All right. Well, let's see. The next question I've got is, we'll start with Tony. What is the best type of device for field staff between tablet, laptop, phone? I know it sounds like your crews use a combination of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I assumed this responsibility in 2015, and what I inherited was just a mixture, a grab bag of technology. And most of these things were used for singular purposes, if at all. For instance, digital cameras, handheld GPSs, and a lot of that was because that was the technology that was available at the time. Well, we've been able to simplify a lot of things. We've really standardized on, for right or wrong, Microsoft Surface laptops. We standardized on iPhones. And again, right or wrong, it's one brand, one interface, one common operating system for everybody to operate from. And we've also replaced a lot of the individual GPSs and cameras with the capabilities of the iPhones. And we're going to continue pushing web-based applications so that the hardware platform itself doesn't matter as much as the back end, or I should say, what the tool that the actual person uses.
All right. Adam, do you want to add to that answer as well?
I wanted to talk about some of the devices we use, just because it's a little bit of a unique situation in Hillsborough where we have very poor cell phone service. So as I administer GIS and asset management, which utilizes GIS, I need to make sure those guys, to the level that I have the ability to, can access that data that are on our servers hosted on site. We use Android tablets exclusively for the Public Works field crews. We have Trimble GPS devices that are at least 5 years old. And with the triangulation of a GPS signal without cell phone service, it really depends on how accurate you want to get in terms of collecting data. I have some QA/QC policies where I'm going to accept something dependent upon the asset that's being mapped to make sure that we have confidence along with standard deviation and RMSE to make sure we know where an asset is, so we don't have to go find it 2 or 3 times over the next couple of years. Hillsborough is very hilly, things get paved over often, and it's best to do the job right the first time and make sure you know where your assets are so you can actually work on them. So I just wanted to chime in and talk about the different, the importance of knowing the technology that you're using and to use it to the best of your advantage.
Thank you, Adam. Let's see. Daniel, the next question's a good one, and looks like you're going to start with the answer. What technologies do you see coming in the future that could be a game changer for Public Works?
Well, I'm sure Ben and Kent, they see a lot with their business they're in of things coming down, but especially with the 5G network, there's all kinds of possibilities that could come out with that. Right now, I see just the increased cloud safety for all our internet-based processes, our water, our wastewater, being able to work the SCADA without fear of hacking. There's a lot of technology out there to be able to operate your water and wastewater systems remotely and off-site, but the danger is there for it to be hacked and have your whole system compromised. So right now, the technology I see is the support coming in to protect that against these hackers. That, to me, that's the most important technology that we can have in our field.
All right, Adam, did you want to add to that answer as well? Or Kent? I think you both had your hand up.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks, Kent. You know, I think Daniel hit it right on the head where Ben and Kent have a lot of different technologies that they're aware about, but you know, I'm sure Tony can attest to this as well as Daniel, that, you know, part of our roles, whether it be, you know, an IT manager, a GIS coordinator, a director at these public utilities, is to stay on top of these technologies and to really be aware of what's on the cusp. You know, part of, as a GIS professional, for sure, part of my job is to sell new technologies. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about, and I'm not talking about monetizing it, I'm talking about making people aware of what is out there, what we can offer our public, and how we can improve our operations here so that we can be on the cusp of the cutting edge and be able to offer these services. You know, AI is going to be a big one in terms of utility management, but I'm sure Ken can maybe talk a little bit more about that as well.
Nice segue. Kent, do you want to add your thoughts?
You make this too easy for me, Adam. Appreciate it. So yeah, actually, I'd like to circle back and just talk about what Daniel was mentioning about the cloud. Security, obviously, first and foremost. I mean, with municipalities across the country seeing hacks on a variety of things, we see it in the news, it seems like every day. That is huge. The other thing that we've seen that's really kind of advanced it at a rapid pace is, if there is any silver lining, which we can't even look at that at this point with the pandemic, but is the adoption of the cloud, is moving to more innovation, you know, and so the cloud based from a remote perspective, being able to actually access the cloud, no matter where you're at, if you're sitting at home, dealing with the split shift, you know, from the pandemic and social distancing and everything else, that has definitely been an advancement there. Other things that I'd like to add just from the AI perspective, obviously AI is going to be huge. I think a lot of us are still trying to figure out exactly where that fits in, whether that's on, you know, data collection or on best practices or, you know, standard operating procedures, kind of roll those things out. But that will definitely have an impact in the coming years. Thank you.
All right, and Tony wanted to add to the answer as well.
Yeah, just a footnote. Some of our biggest emerging technologies, obviously, I mentioned it a couple of times, is the collector, the ArcGIS collector, and all the online tools that are now going to empower not only our inspectors but then field crews to inspect, report on any asset out in the field. That's huge, and we're putting a lot of focus on that with our GIS staff right now. The other thing is that we're looking at is analytics, right? We have all this data. What does it all mean? Can we use analytics to better determine where failure points might be or where problem areas are? So that's a growing thing for us. And given that we're a Microsoft house, we're really relying on our partnership with Microsoft with their analytics tools. So it's exciting times.
All right, great. That's lots of good information. Next question is from Scott. What challenges have you experienced in training field staff to collect and verify accurate data? Do you have suggested best practices for standardization of QA, QC, and collecting data? Let's start with Adam on that one, I guess.
And Scott, great question. So I talked a little bit about this in terms of QA/QC data, and Tony, as well as other people on this panel, have talked about, you know, the importance of things from the bottom up in collecting data. So right now, we have policies in place for, let's take sewer, for example. So sewer manholes, we're GPSing every sewer manhole in town. We've got a little bit over 4,000. And we're about 60% of the way through. Now, we were about 80% of the way through, but after QA/QCing the data, I didn't accept anything with less than a 5-foot horizontal accuracy measurement, which gives us, along with a reasonable standard deviation, so that we know where these devices are. Like I said, you know, things get paved over, people build lawns on top of manholes, and it's really important to be able to access those at all times. And part of the reason this we don't know where some of these are is because we haven't had these metrics in place. But that being said, we're also GPSing all our water valves in town, which are also over 4,000 and significantly smaller than a manhole. So we actually had to get, with our poor cell phone service, again, that GPS accuracy, we purchased a new GPS device to be able to grab that centimeter grade accuracy, and it's been going really well. And we've located about 80% of the valves. And I just want to say, from a GIS perspective, you know, your work there is not done. You need to make sure all the data gets into the production database so that you have the, in my opinion, you know, you have the date and time of acquisition of that GPS, the purpose, the person who acquired that data, along with those metrics built in so that you can know with confidence when you collected it and how accurate that point is. And you can just show it to a supervisor or anybody else right away and say, I know where that is.
Thank you, Adam.
Oh, sorry, I was just wondering if I could actually ask Adam a follow-up question on that. You had mentioned devices.
Sure.
Sorry, going off script a little bit, but you had mentioned devices that you're using to get that data. Adam, are those, you had mentioned a Trimble earlier, is that a Trimble device, or are you actually using GNSS receivers that are tied into, let's say, a tablet or something like that?
So the two older Trimble devices that are a little bit over 5 years old are Trimble Geo XTs. I actually used them over 10 years ago when I was working for the National Park Service collecting points as well. Pretty simple to use and very reliable. They're pretty tough. They'll take a beating. Because of our cell phone signal situation, it can be a little touchy. What we've been having people do is just collect points for at least a minute. So you have over 100 points that you're averaging, and then you can post-process that to get it down further. For the more accurate data points that we talked about that are centimeter grade, we've been using EOS Aero Golds, and those have been really good and helpful in managing our water assets. And you know, you got to keep in mind that these are linear networks, right? So you get all this new data, and then I'm not going to answer this now, but you're moving everything. So you move a point, it's connected to a line, lines are connected to other points and lines. So you got to think about all the implications of the data that you're collecting, but I think everybody on this panel probably knows that it all starts with good data.
Thanks, Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Kent, for the follow-up question. The next question is actually for Kent from Laura. Are you usually using any augmented reality or virtual reality technology?
Yes, actually, we're seeing, should have probably mentioned that earlier when we were talking about emerging technologies. We're seeing that typically in indoors. We see a lot of that. So whether that be a treatment plant where they want to get a full 360 view of what's going on within a plant, how that might all interact, whether it might be just on a simple day-to-day matter, doing inspections, somebody, you know, how everything ties together, or just getting another view of another type of facility indoor and being able to see all the different assets, what everything looks like from that perspective. We are seeing a little bit with the LiDAR as well, so being able to take the LiDAR or even drone imagery and be able to, let's say, take a look at a roof that, you know, somebody might only get up on a roof and do an inspection once a year, but if they're able to fly a drone now with new technology and then be able to do the AR, augmented reality, to get a better view of that, to keep that information up to date. Definitely something we're seeing, you know, more and more with the organizations as they adopt this technology.
All right. I think that was one of our trending technologies in Public Works. I think it was last year, so definitely interested in augmented reality and virtual reality.
And maybe
Ben has a follow-up question for you about that question. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, you know, a lot of what we're seeing with the AR and VR spaces is around, so it goes by a couple different names, but like simultaneous localization and mapping, SLAM, and then structure from motion. So it seems like one of the themes we've talked about quite a lot here is around sort of GPS issues or cellular issues. One of the really, you know, great advances with AR and VR kinds of technologies is being able to place objects within the 3D environment more accurately than maybe the GPS would suggest by using sort of like landmarks within imagery. So I do think that this AR and VR progression is going to help sort of solve a lot of these questions, as Adam was talking about before, around, you know, measurement errors within objects and how they're located in space. So I do think that that's going to be a really big push over the next few years to get those things working, to get them to improve accuracy, and ultimately to, you know, really kind of pull us away from our reliance on GPS and sort of the error that is associated with it. GPS is still great, love it, would not want it to go away anytime soon, but I think we'll sort of augment those with additional types of sensors and technologies that will really make a lot of these drift questions start to become more manageable or ultimately just disappear. So I think that's very exciting.
Thanks, Benjamin. The next question looks like for Kent is going to start with that one. Thoughts on who should have the mobile device or certain apps in the field? Should it be each team member or just the crew leader? What are your thoughts on that?
I hate to put this back to the public works side of things, but I will. A lot of times this is an organizational decision, and we'll help them kind of guide them on that. But in our experience, it really comes down to how much do they want to track. Do they want to actually track cost information on individual projects? Well, that would require an individual team member to have access to an app and be able to put in their time, materials, resources that they're using on that particular task or project. If it's something more about just getting the work done, making sure it's done, maybe then it just needs to be a crew chief that has a tablet or a phone in the field with a particular app on it. I will say that, that's the answer today. In 5 years, I guarantee the answer will be everybody will have a device in their hand. That's just the way it's going. We've seen it, pre-pandemic. I think that's might be something that we're saying in another 2 years, PP. Pre-pandemic, the simple answer was that only crew chiefs would have them. But as people started moving more remote and out of necessity, it just became inherent that why doesn't, everybody have a organizational issued cell phone or tablet to do their work on?
And from the public works side, Tony's going to add to that answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Kent hit the nail on the head. Everybody's eventually going to have a device, and we're already heavily going that way. There's just so much benefit to it, and the cost of these things keep coming down, and the level of service keeps going up for most of our areas, and the amount of things that they're now empowered to do out in the field, from entering time to conducting asset management to actual shovel time, it's huge. And it's a little bit embarrassing to know how much back and forth drive time there was and how little shovel time there may have been as a result. And so now, with some generational shifts and some new technologies coming out, people are definitely way more empowered, and I'm discovering that they want more. And so it's going to continue.
All right. Daniel, did you have something you wanted to add on that one?
Well, and he hit on it. Devices are becoming cheap and easy to get. And there's several programs through the government that you can just get them for free. So there's really no excuse for everybody not having one. I mean, we talk about training and getting everybody dealing with the technology. It doesn't hurt for everybody to have one, just, if anything, to be part of the team or just to learn, to practice with it. I mean, it's just too easy to get your hands on nowadays not to have it.
Thanks, Daniel. And Adam also wanted to add to that answer.
I want to chime in and add into what Tony and Daniel was talking about previously. What Tony talked about, for us, every field crew member has a tablet. We have 40 people in Public Works, so not everybody's field crew, but probably 30 tablets and change, as I mentioned, all Android systems. But I think what's important to remember here is that security is paramount. What Daniel and Benjamin were talking about earlier, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I can think of 3 municipalities within the past year and a half that have had their IT systems held hostage. So, things are connected here, and I'm, again, not going to provide a solution, but it's something to be cognizant of to make sure that tablets are fun and great and accessible to all the devices through, VPN or however you want to set it up to make sure you have the data in that employee's hands to allow them to safely and productively do their job. But you do need to consider other implications that come with the IT items that we're talking about here.
All right, thanks. Let's see. Benjamin, you're up. How is artificial intelligence and machine learning becoming a key supporting technology for field crews? I know it was mentioned earlier, but can you answer more about that?
I think the first one I'd start off with is that, AI and machine learning get a really sort of, I think, bad rap if you read most of the normal sort of like press that comes about it. The reason being that I think it's usually either sort of proffered as, the Terminator scenario and it's going to take over the world, or it's sort of, all smoke and mirrors. And I think the answer is certainly somewhere closer in the middle. Most AI you can think of as just, it's a tool. So if you think of it as kind of like every time you hear AI or machine learning, just think of like really advanced analytics. That's ultimately what it does. And I think that we've already seen it in this discussion so far, that the opportunities to sort of apply these kinds of advanced analytics, machine learning, AI, et cetera, is really is large and continuing to grow as we learn more, as we're adopting more devices in the field, as field crews are getting more sophisticated, we have more data at our fingertips. And all of that lends itself to better or more easily accessible adoption of AI technologies. As I said really at the outset in one of the earlier questions, all of that's going to lead to efficiency. So Tony was just talking about the back and forth and how much time is actually spent in the field with shovels versus sort of like running back and forth with data and managing data. AI, I think, can really help us to do that. It's not going to help with a shovel, at least not yet. That's a robotics question. That's somewhere else. But I think for right now, it's going to help a lot with how we get our data, how we clean it, how we maintain it over time, and how we can ultimately support the decision makers with that really good data that we've transformed into information. And AI is really going to be it'll be the forefront of where all this is going. It just has to be, because it's the opportunities are just too large for us to not take advantage of these kinds of technologies.
Thanks, Benjamin. The next question's for Daniel, and I remember this well, and I would like to know the answer. How does mobile technology help with state and federal reporting, which always has to be done?
Absolutely, and I've seen this in the field myself as the chief water operator for where I used to be. Before the field crews could actually have their devices, it was all done by paper pencil, which there's a lot of trust in that. There's a lot of problems that can happen with that. I mean, a lot of stuff can get messed up. Well, just as simple as a platform or survey 1, 2, 3 can be set up to have the forms. It's just a checklist. As I did water samples, I had my own checklist on our own work order system that I would go down as I did. It was time stamped, it was location stamped, it was automatic record keeping. Once it's there, it's there. Data stays there. You don't lose the data. So when your state and federal people come in to do their yearly surveys, they see you got all your stuff right there in front of you. It's easy to pull up. They see it. They're not filing through papers and all that, and it helps everything. Where I was at before, our state inspector was very pleased with the system we had of being able to look at it, and he even had remote access to it as we did it, so it helped with a lot of the issues of, did you send this form to me, or did you send your paperwork to me? He had it, so it wasn't a matter of finding it, losing it in a snail mail or anything like that. It's there. It's real-time data.
Thanks, Daniel. Adam, did you want to add to this answer?
I'm gonna echo what Daniel was talking about, and it's really helpful to be able to grab that data. But I did want to provide a real-world example that happened Monday during a call. I got asked to hop on a call that I didn't know anything about with the engineering group, and they just said something about tablets. So I sat in and I watched the presenter, who was a consultant, walk us through a mobile form solution that was to be deployed on tablets for people inspecting construction sites. That was required by the county. It was, I would imagine, required by the state. So in the presentation that was probably 45 minutes long, I was able to recreate 70% of the form that they were talking about in Survey 123. Now, I am not a programmer. Survey 123 I've used for maybe a year or two, but I'm by no means whiz banger and developer in any realm of the expression, but it's really easy and helpful and friendly to use, and you can deploy things so fast. We're an Esri shop, so we utilize Collector and Survey 123, and to be able to deliver that to somebody who not only had no idea about what you can do and as quick as you can do it, but also will save your employer revenue, especially during this time, is a very powerful tool.
All right, and Tony wanted to add to the answer as well.
Further endorsed Collector and Survey 123. It's huge. And then the reporting capability on the back end. So again, I further endorse Survey 123 and Collector.
All right, let's see. We've got time for, gosh, maybe one more question. Kent, this is a great question that's probably come up during the pandemic. What can I do to manage staff remotely to promote social distancing?
Obviously, it's very timely right now. So in our experience, we're getting this question every day, pretty much. And it's a matter of everything that we've talked about today, really. It's a matter of mobile apps out in the field, whether that be, mobile apps tied back to your Esri instances with 123 and Collector and other things, whether that's native apps to whatever, operations management software used today, and then moving things to the cloud. So somebody doesn't have to come into, maintain a server or anything like that, or they've got to sync, or they've got to do other things that aren't part of that cloud, deployment. The bigger thing is just getting people used to it. How many people do I talk to every year that say, oh yeah, our normal procedure is to walk into the office on every morning and we get handed our work for the day. They're sitting there with their, 10 coworkers, and they're getting handed out their slips for work. I get it. That's how we've always done things, but that doesn't make it right. So kind of moving in that direction of, all right, I'm sitting there with my app on my phone and I'm driving from home and hitting the field as I go. I can see all my work for my day on my app. I can see where I need to go. I can plan my route if I need to. So yes, that's really just where things are going. And I think, sadly, everything over the last 6 months has kind of sped that process up.
All right, Tony, you wanted to answer that as well?
Yeah, just a couple of final thoughts on that, because I know we covered it a lot, but Ken's absolutely correct. Everybody's absolutely correct. These cloud-based applications and tools are so powerful, but I think it was Adam maybe that said they all come with a risk as well. And with that rush to push everybody out the door to get them home and telework and all that kind of stuff, you know, we've opened up our Office 365 suite, and there's so much information in there that is now at somebody's dining room table, right? So we're now kind of seeing some of the reverberations from that where, okay, we might have to step back a little bit and not restrict the data, but do a better job making sure that we're authenticating people. So our agency, through our county's IT department, we're going to be rolling out two-factor authentication, which unfortunately is going to encumber the end user with a you know, a 5, 10, 15-second interruption before they can authenticate. But we have to make sure that this incredibly powerful tools that we're giving them are secure, because the one lost iPad with a pin on the back of it, you know, it could be pretty damaging. So we're taking that very serious.
And Adam, did you have something you wanted to add as well?
And I wanted to thank everybody for attending, as well as all the panelists and Rita for setting this up. You know, what we're seeing, I'm sure Daniel and Tony can talk to this as well, and I'm sure Ben and Kent have seen it, is that we're seeing things change really, really quickly on the government level right now, because we have to. We have no choice. Government is stereotypically not one to change quickly. And, you know, think about all the Zoom meetings you've been on in the past 9 months. You know, think about anything you can to help your employer develop a safe and productive solution. Think about all the things that you have on your back burner that you couldn't get to because you have all these other jobs that you have to do. You know, we've been scanning blueprints to make sure everything is going to be digital and remote, so people can't sit on an engineering table and read everything together. A lot of solutions are out there, and you know, people like Benjamin and Kent are going to be able to provide you with solutions that you didn't necessarily know you need, but can increase productivity greatly. And that's a good way to think about your employer and your job security, frankly.
All right, and I think we're going to end with Daniel adding to the answer to this question. So go ahead, Daniel.
I just want to emphasize how important it is for us as professionals to stay ahead of the game on this. This pandemic has caused a lot of people to react, and we shouldn't be reacting. We should be ahead of it, seeing what's coming down the line, and these cloud-based work order systems are amazing, and they've been around. If we're doing our job correctly, we shouldn't be behind the curve on this, and that is the simplest, easiest, cheapest thing we can do is have a cloud-based work order system, and I just want to emphasize how important it is to everybody to start adopting that.
All right, thank you so much, Daniel. That is all the time we have for today. I want to thank Kent, Daniel, Adam, Benjamin, and Tony for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. This is Rita Cassada, and it's been a pleasure moderating this program for you. I want to let you know that the Trending Technologies in Public Works Bracket Challenge is live. We're on to the final round. You can take your phone and use your technology and scan that QR code right now to vote. And the voting will be live until September 30th. But these trending technologies are taking hold as they're implemented into public works. Large cities may start using a technology, and then years later, medium and small-sized cities may continue the trend. So the trending technologies for 2021 will be announced in the January Reporter. So hopefully everybody voted. Appreciate your vote. Please don't forget to fill out the evaluation form. The link to the survey will be emailed after the program today. So please note, due to the free form format of this program, it is not eligible for CEUs. A recording of today's program will be available in the APWA Members Library and on YouTube in a couple of weeks. APWA members can log into the library to access past Click, Listen, and Learn, Talking Top Texts, and conference content free of charge. Not an APWA member, that's not a problem. Take the Members Library for a test drive. Spend 2 weeks accessing all the materials in our Members Library for free. Look for the link to sign up after the program today. So I want to thank you for your attendance and participation during this program, and have a great day.